Hi, and welcome to the first in a short series of videos called Design Tools for Makers, in which we will be discussing several different techniques and methodologies and software that you might want to know about when you're creating stuff. So, today's video, we are going to be talking about scalable vector graphics, also known as SVGs, and we're going to discuss what they are, how some people use them, and the software you will need to use to do so. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started.
So the first question is, what even is a scalable vector graphic? Now, the graphic part in that is probably the easiest part. It just means it's an image. And scalable means it can grow or shrink without any kind of loss in the image quality. And so what is a vector? Well, unlike JPEGs, GIFs, or bitmap images, vector graphics are not made out of a grid of pixels. So if I were to show you over in Photoshop, which is a raster image software, you can see all of these. I'm way zoomed into this square I made, and each and every one of these squares is called a pixel. And this is how images are made out. This is how images are made on your TV and your monitor, and even printed out. So done by little dots. On the other hand, vector graphics are comprised of paths, which are defined by a start and end point, along with other points, curves, and angles along the way. A path can be a line, a square, a triangle, or a curvy shape. These paths can be used to create simple drawings or complex diagrams. Paths are even used to define the characteristics of specific typefaces or fonts. So here's an example of just a simple box that I'm creating another square. And now, unlike the other squares that we saw in Photoshop, I can just click on this and I can drag it and move it around. Because vector graphics are not created using pixels, that means they are scalable and you can easily make them whatever size you need them to be. Art created as vector graphics are easy to make at any size that you would like, which allows you to play around with the design and the placement of them in a large project. So if I want to make more shapes, I'm just going to click P for the pen tool. I can easily move all the different components around. Additionally, if you are creating something that needs to be a certain size, for example, a 2 by 4-inch box, it is easy to say that with the corner points here, and it will make a box that size for you. So we're going to make another box, and if I just double click, it's going to ask me width and height. I'm going to say 2 inches, and it will automatically change that to pixels for me. 4 inches, click OK, and this is a 2 by 4-inch box. So if you are making something that size in real life and you print this out to actual size, this is what you'll have. You'll have a 2 by 4-inch box that you can then cut out. So what are some projects that people use SVGs for? Well, some example projects include cutting out shapes with Cricut or other cutting tool like the Silhouette. You can bring those SVGs into the software. I've seen people create really amazing cosplay props, but first they recreate the image or the prop by tracing it to scale, and they print that out, and they used those shapes to cut actual size shapes out of something like foam. We can take this directly into our laser cutting software like the Glowforge app and cut. If I wanted this shape, I could cut this out directly. You can use SVGs to add to a 3D modeling project such as Tinkercad. So if I wanted to add fancy text, I can do so using the import option right here. You can use it to create logos that need to be a certain size, whether that be tiny, like for a shirt, or humongous for a billboard. You can use it for using with a CNC machine, such as the X-Carve that we have at Hamilton Mill Branch, or to cut out and trace by hand. Say you're creating an architectural model, you can use that here. Or you can use it for creating video effects. So I could take this directly in, and in fact, you saw in the beginning that I had this. I created this in Illustrator. So you can bring this directly into your videos as well. So the next question is, what tools can we use to create SVGs? And the two options I would recommend are Inkscape and Illustrator. Illustrator is a part of the Adobe Creative Cloud suite of software, which includes Photoshop, InDesign, and a lot more designed for professional artists. It is a great software, and the Creative Cloud suite is a subscription service paid monthly. Instead of buying it all at one time, you'll pay a monthly service and you'll be getting free updates and being able to use your cloud service as well. Most of the programs are available for either Mac and Windows. And if you don't want to pay for Illustrator or you want to try it out first, the Learning Labs and the tech stations at the Gwinnett County Public Library have Illustrator for you to use for free as long as you have a library card. Now, how about Inkscape? Inkscape is a completely open source vector based imaging program, which means it is free to download and use. It has a number of plugins you can download to extend its features, and while it can seem a bit clunky at first, it is capable of about everything that Illustrator can handle. You can download Inkscape at inkscape.org. Note that it runs off of Xquartz on Mac, which makes it run like it's on Windows. So if you need to use shortcut keys, you'll probably be using Control just like you do in Windows instead of Command. Xquartz will be added automatically at the same time you are installing Inkscape on your Mac. It does not install for Windows. So now we're going to talk about how to use these programs. What is the 20% you need to know in order to be able to do 80% of your projects? So let's go ahead and get started with that. Now, whenever you start a project, you're going to want to think about what is the right size for your project. You're going to want to change your canvas or your artboard to reflect that size. So if you are trying to create something larger than a piece of paper, you'll need your artboard to be larger than a piece of paper. If you're trying to create a design for a screen or a video, you'll want to make sure that your project is set up in the right ratio for your screen, which is 16:9. So how do you do that? In Inkscape, you go to File, and you're going to go to Document Properties, and it'll ask you here, how big do you want your page to be? Now you can say units, so if you want it to be, this is the size of a piece of paper, but say I wanted it to be 20 inches wide by 10 tall, I just go ahead and click in here and click the X, and that was automatically created for us. In Illustrator, you go to File, you can do it in Document Setup, or you can go to New, and you'll get a variety of options, whether you are creating that SVG for mobile, web, or print, or film, and you can create or choose your own option. So width, say I want, we'll do that 20 by 10 option again. And there we go. When creating an object or design in vector-based design programs, you will want to find yourself thinking about your design in lines, shapes, and polygons. Different techniques you may use your design for may work with lines and shape differently. For example, if you are laser cutting your design, the laser will follow the path of the lines you added, thereby creating a shape. It, however, does not actually recognize shape, only that ultimately, once it has finished following a path, say in this example for the four sides of the box, will it have created a shape through the process of cutting out these lines. This means that fill doesn't really matter for vector graphics you plan on laser cutting. For example, on the Glowforge, the software looks at fill and stroke exactly the same. It's just a matter of choosing what to do on the left side. On the other hand, fill matters a lot if you're creating a logo. For most projects, I find that thinking about line rather than shape and then shape is helpful. I will often turn off fill colors entirely while I design something. So how do you make lines, rectangles, circles, etc.? So we'll start with a line, and in Illustrator, you'll see that you have different tools on the left side here. And using, if just clicking and holding on this rectangle will get you your circles, your rectangles, and your lines. And simply just click and drag, and you'll have your shape. You can also double click in the same spot, and it will give you options that you can type in if you know exactly the size that you need. Same thing with circle, but if you hold shift, it'll create a 1-on-1 ratio circle, and if you hold alt, it will grow out from the place that you've originally clicked. You click and then drag, and if you want to create a path or a line with curves and multiple points, you're going to use the pen tool. The pen tool is this one right here, right underneath the arrows. With this, you have a few options. You can draw straight polygons just by clicking once you get to the point you want it to be. Or if you click and hold somewhere, you'll get what's called a Bezier curve. Just like that. In Inkscape, it's very similar. You have your rectangles, you have your circles. If you hold Control, you'll get a ratio circle, not stuck to 1 by 1, and you can see on the bottom what ratio it is. And if you hold shift, it will go from the center point that you clicked. You can draw using the pen tool here. And you can do the same to draw curves. Press return or enter to stop. Now what if you want to make text? Text is really easy. There's a T right here for text in Illustrator. We'll just say this is text. Select that. And we have our properties bar over here. And we can just go ahead and make it nice and large. We can even drag. And we'll do the same thing with the text tool right here in Inkscape. And you see you have your properties right here to make it whatever size you would like. You can use the arrow to drag it around. Now, sometimes for a project, such as with the Glowforge laser cutter, the software you will use for that won't like actual editable text and instead wants the outline only of that text. That means once you've created outlines, your words will just appear as a picture and you will have the outline, which will no longer be editable. So a tip here is to save a copy of your text just in case you decide you need to make a change later. In Illustrator, this is very easy. I just use the Alt and I drag it off my artboard and I'll have a copy. Now to make an outline, you just click it and you click create outlines on this right here, or if you go to type on the top, it says create outlines right here. Once you click that, you'll see that if I were to try to edit it, I can't do that. By here I can. Inkscape is the same, but it uses slightly different terminology. So in this case, what we have is an object. We're going to go to path and change our object to a path. That means the path is the outline part. So now we'll see that we can no longer edit, but we can see the points. And if we wanted to, we can change the font up with the paths. Another very helpful set of tools is the Pathfinder and alignment tools. I'm going to close this. Pathfinder, what it does is it makes any overlapping shapes, allows you to either subtract or add or find an intersection or just combine. So if I were to take this circle and move it over towards this rectangle, and you'll see that now we have these Pathfinder options to the right. If I click right here on the unite, it'll become one object. I can also subtract, so it took out that circle. Maybe I only want this intersecting shape, or maybe I don't want that. Now, if I were to fill this with different colors, so let's just choose that one, and what's here, we will choose that color, you'll see that we won't have a color in the middle anymore. That went away. This became one object, but the middle went away, and I could see through it. Inkscape also does this. So I'm going to draw a square and a circle. I select both of these, and now I go to Path, and it has pretty much exactly the same options. So we have Union, combine them. We have Difference, and we have Exclusion, which did the same thing. It subtracted that there. Along with the Pathfinder tools, there are a number of alignment and distribution tools. So if I were to make a few boxes, like so, and they were out of alignment, and I wanted to align them together, I could easily do that by selecting them and going to the Align, where for any of these things, if you can't find them, just click on Window and go to Align, and you'll see that this popped up. If I want to center it as the objects, I can just click this middle one right there, and you'll see the little line in the center. That means that's where it's going to align to. Align that way, then I can do vertically. Inkscape also does this. If you go to Object, Align, and Distribute, you'll have the same align options. So if I wanted to take all of these things and align them along a horizontal axis, I can just click this button right here. For any of these, you can click and hover over an option, and it'll tell you what it does. Now, what do we do if we want to align a set of things? So for example, I have 3 circles, and then I have 3 more, like this, and I want all this stuff to be aligned here. Well, if I were to just click this and align it, that would not work for me. So this is where grouping becomes very advantageous, and grouping is literally just choosing some stuff, and when you choose the group button, it'll look like it's one thing to the program, and then if you double click on it, you can continue to edit. So we're going to choose these 3 things, which is a set, and we're going to go to Object Group, and now we'll see that this is one thing. If I click on any 3 of these, all 3 of them move. And now I can center these horizontally. Another tip is that in follow-up methods such as the Glowforge software, the software will want to be able to differentiate between multiple shapes. Perhaps you want one shape to be cut out, such as the 3 squares. Perhaps you want some text to be engraved. Maybe you want some more squares to be engraved. Maybe you want this box to be scored. So what do you do? Thankfully, the answer is fairly simple and straightforward. You will take each of these shapes and think about what you want to be done with them. Then anything that will have ultimately the same type of thing done to them, you're going to give them a color that's the same. So for example, anything to be cut out will stay black, while anything engraved is to be turned red. Well, anything to be engraved is turned red, and things to be scored are turned and things to be scored and things to be scored are turned blue. So now we can see here, cut, 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 engrave, 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 and score around. And you can see from this is just some simple rectangles that have been grouped together, aligned, text that has been turned into an outline, and distributed. All these things have been distributed among themselves. And you can do exactly the same thing in Inkscape. This is called image trace, and it's one of my favorite tips. Did you know that some rasterized images, mostly those that are fairly simple in nature, can be easily turned into vector images? There's a magic tool called image trace. With it, you can take an existing image, play with some of the options to try to get the best settings you can. Some particularly high fidelity or images with a lot of colors and parts won't work super well with this method, but you may wind up having to trace manually for those or using the pen tool or other methods. But for this is just an image I found on Pixabay. If we zoom way in, we'll see that there are this pixel, so this is a rasterized image. But if I were to click on image trace and choose one of these, and right now we can see there's only a few colors, so something like 3 colors or shades of gray or black and white, all these should work. And generally you may have to play with some little to find the best result, but this is going to be 3 colors. And that looks pretty good to me. It made some smoothing. That's okay. Let's try black and white logo. So it just gives us black and white, but that might be all we need. Or what about shades of gray? Yep, that works too. Now, when this looks how you want it, I think I'm actually going to use the black and white because it's straighter. You can click expand, and now we have all of these points that we can move around, we can do stuff with. Maybe we change the color on some of these. Notice that it is grouped together, so you ungroup. And maybe that one, that one, that one, and that one are going to not be black. Really helpful little tool there to make what you want into vectors. Hopefully you found this brief introduction to making SVGs helpful. If you'd like to learn more, I'd recommend using lynda.com, which is software that any library card holder can use for free from our website. There are a number of Inkscape and Illustrator courses on it for free. Additionally, Inkscape and Adobe both keep tutorials and help documentation on their websites. There's also a help section on Illustrator itself to go to help, and there will be help and tutorials, and you can ask questions in there. And for Inkscape, there is also a help section. If that's not enough, or you'd like some one-on-one help, you can set up a book librarian appointment with one of the specialists from the Gwinnett County Public Library Learning Labs, and we'll be more than happy to assist you in your learning.
Hopefully now you've seen that SVGs are very helpful in a variety of projects and that Inkscape and Illustrator are two fantastic options for creating them. If you're looking for free software, Inkscape is the way to go. If you want to use Illustrator, either paid or you want to come in and use them for free at the Gwinnett County Public Library, all branches have text stations with Illustrator on them, as well as the Learning Lab locations have them on the Learning Lab computers. So now, I challenge you to go out there and learn, make, and create.